Doris Day really hated her more than Nanyon. Doris Day was born Doris Mary Anna Kappelhoff on April 3, 1922 in Cincinnati, Ohio. She became one of the most loved and talented stars in American entertainment history. Her story from a small-town girl with dreams of dancing to a world-famous actress, singer, and animal helper is a story of her amazing talent, strength, and never-ending charm. From when she was young, Doris loved the arts. At first wanting to become a professional dancer, her dreams were stopped by a terrible car accident in her teenage years that badly hurt her leg. However, this bad thing would surprisingly open the door to a different path, singing. During her long getting better, Doris began singing along with radio, finding out she had a natural gift for music. Her mother, seeing her talent, got her voice lessons, and soon Doris's clear, beautiful voice caught the attention of big band leaders. She chose the stage name Doris Day, inspired by her favorite song at the time, Day by Day. Her big break came when she was hired by Les Brown and his band of renown in the early 1940s. With them, she recorded the huge hit Sentimental Journey, a wartime song that touched millions of American soldiers and regular people alike. The song made her nationally famous and remains one of her most famous recordings. Her success as a big band singer led to a solo recording career during which she made dozens of chart-topping hits including Q Sira Sira, Whatever Will Be, Secret Lovey and It's Magic. Her voice filled with warmth, clearness, and deep feeling became known for happiness and romance. Doris Day easily moved into movies in the late 1940s, making her acting debut in Romance on the High Seas 1948. Critics and audiences right away loved her natural screen presence, funny timing, and musical talent. Over the next 20 years, she starred in a bunch of box office hits that made her one of the most money-making stars in Hollywood. Her performances in movies such as Calamity Jane 1953, Love Me or Leave Me, 1955, Pillow Talk, 1959, and That Touch of Mink 1962 showed her ability to move easily between light-hearted romantic comedies and more serious, emotionally hard roles. Her chemistry with leading men like Rock Hudson and James Garner made audiences happy and made her the queen of the romantic comedy type. But Doris Day's talents went far beyond the screen and recording studio. As her movie career began to slow in the late 1960s, she turned her attention to television, starring in The Doris Day Show, which ran successfully for 5 seasons from 1968 to 1973. Though she finally retired from acting, she stayed in the public eye through her charity work. Perhaps one of the most lasting parts of Doris Day's legacy is her deep love and fighting for animals. In the 1970s, she started the Doris Day Pet Foundation, now the Doris Day Animal Foundation, followed by the Doris Day Animal League. Through her non-stop activism, she fought for animal rights, campaigned for spaying and neutering programs, and fought against animal cruelty with the same passion and dedication she had shown in her entertainment career. Her care extended to all creatures, and she used her fame not for personal gain, but to give a voice to the voiceless. Doris Day's personal life, though often hidden from the public eye by her screen personality, was marked by a series of deeply hard and often stormy marriages. She was married 4 times over the course of her life, and each marriage played a big role in shaping both her private world and public image. Her first marriage was to trombone player Al Jordan, a fellow musician she met while performing with Barney Rapp's band in the early 1940s. The two married in April 1941 when Doris was just 17 years old. At first, their relationship may have seemed good given their shared musical backgrounds, but it quickly turned into a nightmare. Jordan, who had what would no likely be called schizophrenia, was known to be deeply troubled and mean. His mental illness, combined with violent tendencies, created a dangerous and toxic home environment. When Doris became pregnant with their only child, Jordan insisted she end the pregnancy. She refused, standing firm in her desire to become a mother despite the risks and pressures. In revenge, Jordan viciously beat her, reportedly trying to cause a miscarriage. Thankfully, she gave birth to a healthy baby boy in 1942, naming him Terrence Seppel Jordan. Their marriage, however, was beyond repair and the couple divorced in February 1943. Years later, Jordan died by suicide. A tragic end to a life marked by mental illness and instability. The trauma from this relationship left a lasting mark on Day both emotionally and mentally. Her second marriage was to saxophone player George William Weidler, whom she wed on March 30th, 1946. Weidler was the brother of child actress Virginia Weidler, and like Doris, he was involved in the music industry. Their marriage, though far less crazy than her first, was short-lived, lasting just over 3 years before they split up on May 31st, 1949. Interestingly, this relationship did not utterly fade from her life even after their divorce. The two got back together several years later during a brief period of trying again. During this renewed contact, Weidler introduced Doris to the ideas of Christian Science, a spiritual philosophy that would have a lasting impact on her worldview. This exposure would influence many of her beliefs about health and healing in the years that followed, particularly during times of personal crisis. Although the marriage itself was relatively welcome compared to her other marriages, Weidler's influence on her spiritual development was deep. Perhaps the most important and lasting of Day's marriages was her third, to movie producer Martin Melcher. They married on April 3, 1951, Doris's 29th birthday. This marriage not only lasted the longest, going until Melcher's death in 1968, but also had a major impact on her career. Melcher managed and produced many of her most successful movie projects, and the twerk worked closely as a professional team. He also legally adopted her son, Terence, who became known as Terry Melcher, giving him his last name and helping raise him as his own. On the surface, it appeared to be a stable and helpful partnership, but underneathly a web of manipulation and betrayal. Unknown to Doris, Melcher had been mismanaging her money, and after his death, she discovered that he had left her deeply in debt despite her years of box office success. Adding to the complexity, both Doris and Melcher were devoted followers of Christianity during much of their marriage. Their faith discouraged regular medical treatment, and this belief led her to delay seeking medical attention, even when she began experiencing troubling symptoms, including signs that may have suggested cancer. Only after Melcher's death did she begin to question her religious connection, though she never fully abandoned the teachings of Christian Science. Doris gradually distanced herself from the Church of Christ Scientist. She grew spiritually curious and formed connections with important figures in the charismatic Christian movement, including the influential faith healer Catherine Kuhlman. These relationships brought her comfort and a renewed sense of spiritual purpose, even as her own beliefs remained rooted in the ideas she had learned earlier in life. Doris Day's fourth and final marriage was to Barry Comden, a maitre d' at one of her favorite Los Angeles restaurants. They were married on April 14, 1976, and their marriage lasted until their divorce on April 2, 1982. Comden, who was 11 years younger than Doris, first caught her attention not with charm or fame, but with an act of kindness that spoke directly to her heart. He gave her a bag of leftover meat scraps and bones to take home to her beloved dogs. A lifelong animal lover and future animal rights fighter, Doris was touched by the gesture, which showed her passion for animal welfare. Though they initially shared a romantic bond, the relationship heavily soured in large part due to different priorities. Comden would later complain that Doris cared more for her pets than for him, feeling overshadowed by the attention and devotion she gave to her animal friends. For Doris, however, her animals were not just pets. They were cherishing companions who had helped her through some of the darkest moments of her life, the emotional strain and incompatibility to the end of their marriage after 6 years. Among all the complicated relations and rivalries Doris Day experienced throughout her amazing career in Hollywood, there was one name that stood out starkly in her mind: Ginger Rogers. Doris Day's feelings toward Ginger Rogers were not just those of casual dislike or professional jealousy. They were deeply rooted in personal hate and resentment, a hatred that was bigger than any other negative feeling Doris ever had toward Daniel in the entertainment world. This intense dislike didn't happen overnight. Doris Day, a wholesome girl-next-door figure who carefully built a clean, approachable public image, found herself in stark contrast to Ginger Rogers, who represented an older generation of Hollywood glamour and complexity. Rogers was known for her sophisticated style, sharp wit, and commanding presence, qualities that sometimes overshadowed Doris's more down-to-earth charm. In many ways, Rogers had the kind of star power and fierce independence that Doris secretly admired but openly resented. Doris felt that Ginger Rogers was often given privileges and respect in the industry that Doris herself was denied, especially early in her career. Rogers had been a household name since the 1930s and 42nds, celebrated mainly for her legendary dance partnership with Fred Astaire, while Doris had to work hard to climb the ladder. Initially as a big band singer before breaking into movies, Doris saw Ginger as someone who, despite being past her prime in the eyes of Hollywood by the 1950s, still commanded respect and special treatment. A lingering symbol of an era Doris felt forced to move past. Moreover, behind the scenes, Doris found Rogers to be cold and dismissive. Stories from those who witnessed their interactions often describe Ginger as someone who could be sharp-tongued and intimidating, particularly to younger actresses she saw as competition or as not belonging to her elite circle. Doris, who was known for her kindness and warmth, felt deeply alienated by this frosty attitude. It created an emotional gap that widened into trite disdain. Additionally, Doris Day resented Rogers for her connection to Hollywood's old studio system, which Doris struggled against. Ginger was a product of an era when actresses had less control but more mystery, while Doris was part of a new wave that pushed for more independence and personal authenticity. Doris felt Rogers symbolized a Hollywood that boxed in women and pitted them against each other, a system Doris herself fought to overcome. There were also rumors and whispered gossip that Rogers once hurt Doris's opportunities, whether on purpose or through the power of her influence. While the truth behind these claims is difficult to verify, the perception alone was enough to fuel Doris' hate. In a competitive industry where roles were scarce and reputations frail, such undercurrents could breed long-lasting grudges. Doris Day's hatred for Ginger Rogers was a complex mix of professional rivalry, generational conflict, personality clashes, and the harsh realities of Hollywood's star system. It wasn't just about two actresses competing for attention. It was about what Ginger Rogers represented in Doris Day's world. A reminder of a past that Doris wanted to leave behind, a gatekeeper to success, and a person whose behavior hurt Doris deeply on a personal level. This intense dislike stayed with Doris throughout her career and colored how she viewed one of Hollywood's most iconic leading ladies. Ginger Rogers. Doris Day passed away peacefully from pneumonia on May 13, 2019 at her home in the peaceful and beautiful Carmel Valley, California. At the amazing age of 97. She left behind a legacy that spanned decades in movies, music, and animal welfare. Pneumonia, a serious lung infection that can be particularly dangerous for elderly people, was the cause of her passing. Despite the inevitability of death, Day's final moments were marked by the calm and comfort of being in her own home, surrounded by the peace of California countryside she loved so dearly. Carmel Valley had been more than just a home for Day. It was a refuge, where Ash could enjoy a quieter life away from the relentless spotlight of Hollywood, reflecting the gentle and grounded nature she showed throughout her career. The news of her death was formally announced by the Doris Day Animal Foundation, the charitable organization she founded to fight for the protection and welfare of animals worldwide. This foundation had become one of her deepest passions in life, reflecting her lifelong devotion to animals and their rights. The announcement carried not only the sadness of losing such a beloved public figure, but also a celebration of her enduring commitment to kindness and compassion. The foundation's role in delivering the news showed the deep connection between Doris Day's identity and her humanitarian work, symbolizing how intertwined her personal mission was with her public legacy. Through this organization, Doris Day's influence extended far beyond the entertainment world, touching the lives of countless animals and inspiring advocates everywhere. Respecting her personal wishes, the Doris Day Animal Foundation also said that there will be no traditional funeral services, no grave marker, and no public memorials following her death. This decision reflected Doris Day's modesty and her preference for privacy, even in death. Throughout her life, she had often avoided the glitz and glamour of Hollywood fame, instead choosing to focus on more meaningful, quieter pursuits. By requesting no funeral or public commemoration, she made clear that she wished to avoid the spectacle that often goes with celebrity deaths. Instead, she allowed her legacy to live on through her work, her movies, her music, and most importantly, her dedication to animal welfare. This choice also allowed her family, friends, and the foundation to grieve in a private and intimate way. Free from pressures of public attention. It was a final act of grace and humility constant with the genuine and down-to-earth personality that Doris Day maintained throughout her extraordinary life.